Well, yesterday we announced to our workers that we were going to stop banana production at the end of March because last week we bagged the last fruit and we harvest that in about 3 months or so, so end of March. And I wanted to make sure to talk to our workers before anybody else knew. That was the number one thing. And so it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. So the reason why this came about is because primarily looking into the future, trying to figure out where we need to be. The biggest wild card going on right now is banana bunchy top virus. We found it. It jumped across the river, Wailuku River, about 5-6 months ago. Then 1 month ago, we found 6 infected plants on our own farm. And then in between then, there was a big pocket that was discovered right next to Alai Cemetery. And that was quite large. And we were surprised because it had been there for a while. We just didn't know. So now we found that several months later we have some on our farm. Our worry is that what happened if it's in the gulches? If it's in the gulches, we can't stop it because there's no way for us to get in the gulch to eradicate them. And so the reality is sooner or later, we're going to be faced with what we were faced with in Keao when we had the first incident that caused us to leave Keao. So it was a difficult decision to make, but it was a case where we had to make the decision so that we could transition to be relevant for 10 years from now. So winter coming up, production is going to drop. That's why we decided to do it now.
Yeah, that one's a nice one right there. Ooh, boy. That'll be like 100-something pounds,
So I had the meeting yesterday and told the workers, and my main concern is them. So I asked them, would we want to go to the end of March or so? That would be the ideal situation for us. But if they felt like they needed to collect unemployment now, I'm more than happy to help them that way. And if they needed to go look for a job now, I'm more than happy to give them letters of recommendation. So I asked them to decide what it is they wanted to do. And what they told me was that they would stick it out to the end. And that was kind of hard to take.
Yeah. So there's a primary color, yellow. And then with the yellow, there's a yellow and white on the bottom. Yellow, black and white, yellow, red and white. So right there you've got 4. Then you have a blue, and then the blue and white, and the blue, black and white, blue, red and white. It's another 4. Oh no, it's you cannot help but become part of your brand too. But you gotta resist something like that because when it's time to change, it's time to change. We were so attached to the Keao banana label. We thought that was the only thing in the world. Then we changed it to Mauna Kea banana.
Yeah.
And then we changed it to Hamakua Springs.
Then I started to talk about the alternatives possible. And that is, if we just shut down and then we rented the packing house and sold the electricity from the hydro, we'd be okay paying for our nodes. But that wouldn't benefit them much. What came up just recently, and there's been talk about it, I didn't take it very seriously, was a group wants to pursue a medical marijuana license. And so the more I thought about it, and the more we talked about it, they would like for me to help them because we know about growing tomatoes, which is pretty much like growing cannabis, yeah? So I was real clear that if I was to help them, first I would have to talk to my workers before I even made up my mind. And so what made up my mind was yesterday, I found out that I'd asked my workers if they were interested in working for a company that produce, medical marijuana? Would they be willing to? Would they want to apply? And if so, let the supervisors know. It turns out that every single one of my workers would like to work there. So under those conditions, I'm more than happy to help that group that want to pursue getting a license because it'll help my workers. Yeah, so the two real important things to me was my workers having first shot at getting the jobs, and the other thing was security for our community. And so the condition I had was, okay, if you're gonna do it, I just knowing what I know, I would require a live camera outside so that we can survey and look at the roads that people traveling, up and down. Because I know the security inside is fine, but it's the outside, what the community perceives to be whether it's, secure or not. So they said, yeah, we don't want this to become an opportunity for rich people or foreigners, or we don't want to turn this into a plantation thing. We would really like for our community and people to participate as much as they can. And that's why I would like to be involved, because that's what I'm going to be advocating for. Yeah, I understand what the discussion is, greenhouses versus completely enclosed. It's about cost. If it's completely enclosed, then it'll be more electricity. If it's outside, then it's in greenhouses. Then you can use the natural lighting. So again, it's about cost. So which one will be cheaper, and provide the safety? Because if you don't have a controlled environment, then you've got to use something to control a pest. If it's pesticides that you're going to use, that's not going to be something anybody wants, because that's what you use, to get the oils and stuff like that. You just don't want to be spraying anything. So the pluses for the control environment entirely is that you can keep the insects and pests out. One of the things that made us decide to do what we're doing is because from everything we see, those who can pass on the cost of energy, petroleum products, will pass on the cost. And the folks that are left that can't pass on the cost, that's the folks that are on fixed income, the kupuna and single moms like that, as well as farmers, because farmers are price takers, they're not price makers. So as we look at that, we really need to utilize the maximum amount of technology we can to grow plants so that we can avoid using more petroleum products. And so we have to keep our minds open to different possibilities. We just cannot say this is wrong and we can't use it, because it's a matter of survival. As we go into the next 20 years or so, and oil being a declining resource, we haven't faced a situation like this. The world hasn't faced, and we've got to be really aware.
So we know, one thing we know is the stuff that's coming out of the ground, the steam that's coming out of the ground, that's not going to change. Yeah. So as oil prices rise, the geothermal energy will be more competitive. That's just, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. And it has to do with making hydrogen. And you can run electricity through water, so if it's cheap, you can make it and be competitive. And another thing that's really interesting is that what happens if you set this up in such a way that generating that electricity becomes a byproduct? In other words, if the utility would say, you know what, we'll take 100% of everything you generate, then a company that's generating will say, you know what, okay, we can make money 100% instead of throwing away some, curtailing it, like they say. What you could do then is they would have incentive to oversize their operation, and all the extra that they have, they can sell it for cheaper because they're making money off the other stuff. Then all of a sudden now you're in a place where it's a byproduct. And when it's a byproduct and you're making fertilizer out of byproduct, now we're talking story. We can do all these kinds of things. You just got to have some imagination and the proper structure and stuff like that.
The change is coming. You know, we just, what I think we really need to do, all of us, is we need to come together and go forward together, you know, and try to understand that that's what it's going to take for all of us to utilize things, resources that we have in the most efficient way. And everybody can do their share. You know, it doesn't have to be everybody producing like us. It can be smaller farmers, family farm. Everybody can contribute what they do in their own way. What we don't want to do is be fighting with each other on things that are trying to prove who's right and who's wrong. It's not a matter of who's right or wrong. It's a matter of what's right. Anyway, that's kind of how I think. We really need to pull together and move forward together. It's not the biggest, strongest, or smartest that survive. It's the ones that can adapt to change. And that's what we got to keep our minds open to, is anticipating change and do the stuff you got to do to position yourself where you need to be in the future. It's the Wayne Gretzky strategy. You got to skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is right now.
If we had GMO bananas, there's no reason why we couldn't take over the whole industry.
You know, we don't know what's going to happen with Bunchy Top, because let's assume that there's a variety that's genetically modified that works. Maybe then we can come back in, or maybe other people will. We just don't know, yeah? But we can't just wait until it happens. We've got to kind of move on and then take a look back later on. You know, a lot of the decisions as to whether somebody will farm and keep on farming or not, or pass it on to future generations, occurs on the dinner table at night. And people are just asking, you know, and talking to their kids, trying to decide where should they be? Would they want to go into something? If they're not sure, they can send their kids to school. You know, all of these things, a lot of the stuff is not very clear. You know, you're just going by feeling. So if the feeling is, let's all go together, and you know that we're all trying to help each other out, that's one thing. You're more apt to go in that direction. If not, then you will make the decision that you think is the most reasonable for your own family, yeah? So in a situation where people are against GMOs and all the scientific data that I see says that it's safe, well, I just make a decision that I got to make. You know, I'm not criticizing anybody or anything. We got to do what we got to do and move on and adapt. Yeah, and we've been working with Dr. John, who for many years, he almost found us a GMO variety about 10 years ago. So this has been happening with the banana industry for many years. And you know, I know that the law intended that if there was an emergency, they would allow. But you know, by the time the emergency happens, it's too late to adapt, because you're making decisions way in advance. It's a branding thing. If you can not use GMO, brand it, and charge a lot, then it would be beneficial. But bananas is not a high-end gourmet item. You know, it's one of the cheapest fruit on the market. Let's assume that there is a GMO banana that's developed, and we're completely out of bananas. Now, that replacement plants would be tissue culture. That means they're perfectly clean of all root diseases and everything. So when you come back, your whole farm is clean again. So it's not a bad thing to position, just wait and watch.